Hi there, it's Sandy, your sister and your friend. Welcome to today's video. Today's video is mostly based on one particular lesson, lesson 153, in the book called A Course in Miracles. And most of the lessons, the workbook lessons, have one or two sentences that they want students to focus their attention on during the day. And for this lesson, the sentence was, "In my defenselessness, my safety lies." Well, as I read this workbook lesson and then implemented it in my life, I've really seen a shift in a good way in my personal life, and also in the way that I pray for people who are living in nations that are engaged in war or where there's strife across the world. And before getting into the specifics for this lesson, I wanted to first say there are a few things that I just want, in case you're new to my channel, that I base everything, this is kind of the bedrock, these beliefs that I think have been unveiled in my heart. One is that God is love, and anything that we see about God that doesn't align with God really indicates that we don't understand that situation, or maybe we have defined God as an angry God or something other than being love, which is what God is. That is our creator. Getting to that point, as we were created, have been created by God as a thought from the mind of God. And because of that, we still exist, all of us together, as the one Son of God that has never left heaven. There's nothing that God has created that's alive today that can be separated from him. So we still, our true self still abides in heaven, there with our creator, with the divine creator. And because of that, you might say, well, what is this world? And I believe this is a dream world, if you would think of it that way, that our collective ego formed as a way for us to experience waking up to our true identity. And that's kind of the purpose of us going through this worldly experience and finding out about ourselves and how to get to a state of grace and knowledge that would come out of our true identity. So getting into today's lesson, if we assume then that we are here in this world that we created as a dream world, we fell asleep, and in the state of creating this world, it really is a world that's, because we're separated, we believe that we're separated from God and separated from each other, neither of which can be true. But because we believe that, our egos have really created the basis of this world as being one of attack. We feel like we are guilty because we separated ourselves from God, and therefore we're afraid of God, we're afraid of other people, and then we project the guilt that we feel from this perceived separation as fear, and that therefore our human response to being afraid and to feel like we're going to be attacked by God or by other people out there. There's nobody out there because we're all one. But because we're afraid of that, our human nature tells us to set up defenses. But instead of protecting us by setting up defenses, we actually, those actually serve as a double threat to us. That's hard to believe. That's that by us setting up defenses here in this world, according to the ways of this world, that really provides a threat for us. And in two ways. One way is that it gives out the message to us first, and then to everybody else that we see as other people in form outside of us. We give out the message that we're weak. So somebody who doesn't perceive themselves as weak is not going to need to set up a whole vast array of defenses, of ways to protect themselves. Remember now, our true self remains in heaven and is encased in unconditional love there in heaven, where there is no fear and there is no attack. And that's what our true self remains in, that environment, in a place that's not really a place, because we're spirit in there and not in form as we are here on this earth. And perfect love casts out fear, so there's really nothing that can reside there that's fear or attack. The second way that by us setting up ways to defend ourselves is a threat to us is that we come up with, our ego tells us to come up with man-made systems of defense. And we know, if we honestly look at our own experience, the history of mankind, we know that there is no defense system out there that can't be broken or stolen or lost, or that there can't be a stronger weapon that would overcome whatever weapon we've come up with. And so by continuing to form man-made security systems, what we're really doing is that it actually leads us to become more fearful than we were before. And it's really the definition of insanity that we think that we can come up with something that's going to work this time, even though it has never worked for anyone before. So really, when you stop and think about it like this, defensiveness is weakness, and it denies the Christ in us. Now, our true self, which remains in heaven, and when we get in touch and start waking up and realize that who we truly are, we know that we are invincible and invulnerable to attack. Yet our ego tells us that we are being attacked by illusions and fantasies, and tells us to create even more illusions and fantasies that it defines as a security system, as a way to protect ourselves and to become safe. But when we look at it realistically and from the perception of who we truly are in Christ, in God, we will know that the key to our safety is actually being defenseless. That is a strength that recognizes the Christ in us. And there are only two choices that we ever make when we perceive that there's a threat coming from outside of us, and that is that either we choose our weakness or we choose God's strength in us. Those are really the two choices. And when we choose His strength in us, we can perceive, as He does, that this world is just a silly game that a child might have come up with when he or she is too sleepy to actually know what they want. And there's a verse in 2 Corinthians that Paul writes to the church at Corinth, and he says that the Lord told him, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." Now, to the world, being defenseless will appear as weakness, but to those who are choosing defenselessness, they have God's assurance that His grace and His power will rise up in them. And I believe now that I'm practicing this defenselessness, I think that it really works on every level. When I apply it in a personal sense, that somebody may have said something to me or looked at me or whatever, and if I don't, even in my own mind, I don't set up any defenses against whatever attack that my ego is perceiving, if I view this, my response as being one of love as opposed to defense, what happens without words, I can feel the energy shift. And if that person is open to love in that moment, that my love, the love of Christ in me, actually changes the whole environment. So the thing that they are fearful about gets transmuted by the love that I'm offering them, extending outward to them. And any perceived difficulty that we might be having or inequality in who we are to each other really just quickly dissolves. And I believe this works on every level. I think it works on the personal level, and I think it also works on the level of nation that feels like it needs to defend itself against other nations. So I'm taking today's lesson as an invitation for me and hopefully for you to stop playing the childish games that we've been playing. Our function here is to help others wake up to the never-ending joy that awaits them and all the possibilities that await them when they start to wake up to their true identity and realize they don't have to be fearful anymore. We don't have anything to be afraid of because we are invincible and we do live in God, in Christ, even in this moment. And it's in this position of knowing our security and our own safety, that's how we're going to bless the world. And this really is at least one of the holy purposes that we have here on this planet. I wanted to share one thing that was part of the concluding part of this lesson 153. And this is how it reads. It says, "Let us focus on our defenselessness. We rise up strong in Christ and let our weakness disappear as we remember that His strength abides in us. He remains beside us through the day and never leaves our weakness unsupported by His strength. We call upon His strength each time we feel the threat of our defenses undermine our certainty of purpose. We will pause as He tells us, 'I am here.'" May we remember together and as we go through this day and every day that Christ is in us. He's never left us. And in every moment, we have access to Him, reminding us to not get defensive, that is not the solution to any problem that we face. Jesus Himself gave us a great example in the hardest time He faced probably during the course leading up to His crucifixion, when He was interrogated by those in leadership positions who could have freed Him. The Bible tells us that He offered no defenses for Himself. And even while He was being crucified, He knew then that everybody there was, He said, "Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing." They were living in a state of confusion based on the illusions that they believed. And you know what? The power that was in Christ Jesus is in us here today. So let us live from that place just as He did. Let us know that there's nothing that we need to fear, because we are secure in the safety of knowing that we are never apart from Christ, from God, from our Creator. Thank you so much for listening. If you haven't subscribed, I'd love for you to, and hit the like button, or you can leave me a comment. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you again. I hope you have a blessed rest of the day. Bye-bye.